Hi guys, so Wes Streeting, the Labour Shadow Health Secretary, was on Sky News where he was amazingly frank in his observation of the situation. Boris Johnson is doing massive damage to the Conservative Party, and the longer he stays there, the more damage he will do. We have seen how Operation Save Big Dog is going, but it's unlikely to succeed if we see more and more photos and videos being released, which feature either Johnson or his staff having a bit of a shindig while the rest of the country were following the rules.
I don't want to seem overly cynical here, Mr. Streeting, but actually there is a point of view that says that the people who most benefit from having Boris Johnson deeply wounded, damaged, but still in office is the Labour Party, and that actually, for you, having him clinging on in number 10 is better for you as a party, even if getting him out you think would be better for the country. And actually, all of this rhetoric is really just a way of making sure he stays there.
No, so I'm not make no bones about it. Boris Johnson carrying on is great for the Labour Party. If I'm thinking about this purely through the prism of party politics, my message to Tory MPs is keep him on, knock yourselves out. Literally, you'll be knocked out at the next election.
This is a wonderful response because he's extremely frank about it. Yes, Boris Johnson is beneficial to the Labour Party. The longer he stays, the more damage he does to his own party, the Conservatives. Now, Wes Streeting is stretching it a little bit because I believe that, yes, Boris Johnson staying in number 10, continuing with this disaster, is beneficial to the Labour Party. But it's also beneficial to other opposition parties, the Liberal Democrats, the Greens, and the SNP in Scotland. The longer he stays there, the more damaging he is to the Conservatives. And I wasn't expecting Wes Streeting to be so frank in this regard, but to avoid being accused of playing party politics, he goes on to say.
But we're still in the middle of a national crisis here, and the Prime Minister's actions and judgments matter. In fact, it comes back to the point I made about Plan B measures. If a Prime Minister or a Health Secretary from the Conservative Party is coming forward and saying we're going to remove Plan B measures, I want to be absolutely confident they're making that decision in the national interest and not in the party interest for party management reasons. I don't have total confidence about that. It's one of the reasons why in the coming days I'll be talking to leaders of the NHS and talking to government scientists and other scientists to get their independent, impartial view, because I can't trust that at the moment ministers are guided by one principle and one principle alone, which is public health before party politics. So this is not good for the country. I think Boris Johnson ought to go in the national interest. I know we'll be stuck with a Conservative government for a bit longer, and I hope it is just a bit longer. And the responsibility ultimately falls on us to show the voters that we're not complacent, we're not waiting for government to fall into our laps. We don't think it's the case that because the Tories are in a mess that people just flock to Labour by default. We want to win people's trust. I mean, that's why yesterday Keir Starmer did a big speech about the future of health and social care. He could have just banged on about Boris Johnson for 20 minutes and everyone would have loved it. But he did that speech to show the country that Labour has a plan, Labour has a vision for the country, Labour is ready for government.
Indeed.
And I think this is a good approach because you have to remember that Boris Johnson is not going to be there forever. You can take advantage of the situation. Boris Johnson is extremely unpopular and he's a drag on the Conservative Party. But the Labour response cannot be just about Boris Johnson, because as soon as Johnson is gone, not sure when it's going to take place, but more and more evidence of parties is going to speed that exit from number 10 up. The more we see, the faster it'll go. But you can't just focus on Johnson, you have to focus on the Conservative Party. And this idea that we're going to bypass the government, we're going to go directly to the NHS, is a smart move. Now, whether this has already happened, if this is normal policy, just to speak directly to the NHS, I don't know. But by talking about it in the media, saying, look, you can't trust Boris Johnson. If you can't trust Boris Johnson, how can you trust the Conservative Party? How can you trust this government? They have lied to you. So you should instead trust us, because we're going directly to the experts. We're going directly to the people involved. And we're not going to spin it in some way. We want to look at the evidence in the cold light of day. So I think this is a smart move, describing the situation where Boris Johnson is a drag on the party. We all know that. The Conservatives know that as well. and highlighting that it's a benefit to opposition parties that he stays there. I've said before, Boris Johnson is one of the greatest assets for Scottish independence. The longer he stays there, the more people will be convinced, look, Scotland needs to go. As soon as he's replaced, that dynamic could shift. It's likely to shift. By how much, I don't know. If Sunak is in charge or somebody else is in charge, but the Conservatives have really damaged politics, and even if they decide to replace Johnson with someone like Sunak, there's an uphill struggle to win back trust. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think about all of this. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.